Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. You want tech and tacos, tacos and tech, you know we got it, eh? Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. Startups get the party, startups get the party started. You want tech and tacos, tacos and tech, you know we got it, eh?
All right, welcome back to the Tacos and Tech podcast. I'm your host, Neal Bloom. I'm so thrilled to have on Eric Birkemeier from ShredLights and now Meepo Electric Skateboard. We've got an interesting story to tell you, a very San Diego story from a San Diego entrepreneur who I think I first met at San Diego State. It's possible that you were there in the program, startup programs there. And I think from afar, been watching your journey, which has been pretty cool. Had some big news recently. I don't want to spoil the news there. So Eric, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, excited to be here.
Give us a high level, what's ShredLights and what's Meepo Electric Skateboard now?
Yeah, so ShredLights is action sports lighting company that we started at San Diego State over 10 years ago as kind of a challenge to see if we could engineer a product that didn't break. And turned out that problem was a lot harder to solve than we thought. And we were kind of right place, right time with the micromobility industry taking off. Micromobility is electric bikes, electric scooters, electric skateboards, any sort of light portable device that operates on a battery. And we were right place, right time. So that was kind of our niche. And now in 2025, ShredLights was just acquired by Meepo Electric Skateboards, where I'll be working now. And yeah, really excited for the next steps, but also excited to kind of look back today and share some of the cool moments of the journey to get here.
Oh, congrats. That's huge. Man, what a journey. We need like some like confetti to pop off here. Burp, burp, burp.
Yeah, right.
Because I know, it always feels like that's what's going to happen and you cross the finish line, but the path to the finish line is tough. And then there usually is like, oh, and by the way, you got to keep working for the next 2 years or something as well, too. So
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. But congrats either way to just have a new, an inflection point, a milestone is a big deal. But take us back. Like, are you, where did this all come from? You come from a family of entrepreneurs? Do you always want to start a skateboard company? Or where
Yeah. I love building things. Ever since I was a kid, I have 3 older brothers, and so we would go in our basement and empty out all the Legos, the Connects. We were always into the toys that were kind of like DIY, make your own adventure. So I think that was, from a young age, I just loved taking a box of, a bunch of bricks of Legos and then envisioning what you could turn it into and bringing it to life. And like in, those 3rd, 4th grade art projects where it asks like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always said I wanted to be an inventor. And I would like take my Lego projects to school and try and sell them. So I think early on I was like trying to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know what the name was, so I called it an inventor. And then I grew up in Minnesota, and I was always really into skateboarding and snowboarding and all the action sports there, which I didn't really fit in. Most of my friends played hockey up in Minnesota. So I always kind of saw all these skate videos and snowboarding videos of California. And having not been out here, it just seemed like this like magical dream place where, it's always good weather and you can surf, snowboard, skate. And it really kind of, drew me in. And in high school, I think kind of one inflection point for me in my life and my entrepreneurship journey was my first part-time job. I was making pizzas, and I was making I think it was like $7 an hour at the time in like 2011, 2012 in high school. And I would go to the thrift stores after work and look for stuff to buy and resell online. And the niche I found ended up being like Air Jordan basketball shoes. So I would go work this shift for like 5 hours, make like $50 before taxes. And then right after my shift, I would drive to the thrift store. And sometimes I would find a pair of shoes where the profit from those would be, $100. So I think at 16 years old, it really kind of like rewired the way I think about earning money. And it taught me that it's not really about how hard I work or how long I work, it's about how much value can you provide to other people. And so that direct like trade-off really had a big influence on me. And at that time, my older brothers were just graduating college and getting into their careers. And it was a tough time. It was right after the 2009 financial collapse. So my oldest brother was having a hard time finding a job. So I think all those experiences at the age of 16 kind of culminated and planted that seed of like, I want to own a company. I want to start a business. I want to control how much value I'm putting into the world and do it my own way. So I think that was kind of like the initial seed of entrepreneurship.
Amazing.
And then from there, yeah.
What brought you to San Jose State?
Yeah, exactly. I came out one time and saw the campus and I was like, I will die before I don't come to school here. It was like so clear. Like, you know, you get those feelings I was on campus during the tour and within 20 minutes, I was like, this is the place for me. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll sell a kidney. I'm coming to the school. So when I got home, I lied to my parents and told them that I applied to all these schools in Minnesota, which I never did. And I only got into 3 schools in San Diego: UCSD, SDSU, and USD. I only wanted to go to SDSU, but I applied to the other ones just for safety. So end of senior year high school comes around, and my parents were like, "All right, which college are you going to?" And I said, "Well, I have to move to San Diego because I didn't apply to any other schools. So your options are I don't go to college this year, or I get to move to San Diego." They were like, "You little shit," but like they respected it because I made it so there was no possible way I couldn't come to San Diego. So I think that was kind of looked at it was like I understood the stakes. So I was like, I'm not gonna leave this up to my parents or leave any wiggle room other than like getting what I need to get. And then moved out to STSU right away in month 1. I think my mom recommended that I join the entrepreneurship club because she was trying to help me get involved and stuff. And went in there, tried to start a business for my Air Jordan shoe business. And it was fun because it got me in there and I got to meet like-minded people, and it really opened my eyes to the entrepreneurship community at SDSU, which was awesome. And meeting all these other like-minded students, it was amazing. So I was in there, and literally one day I was kind of giving up on my idea. And I was in the zone.
What was that idea? Curious.
That one was called the Steve's Depot, and it was essentially like going to be eBay, but niche down to streetwear. So anyone could list, shoes or secondhand, like high fashion kind of clothing, and my site would verify if it was real or fake, and you could resell. But it was a much, much bigger undertaking than I would have thought to, develop this whole website that could do all that. So I was kind of understanding that after a couple months, like maybe this one is too big to chew off right now. And 2, I'm not super passionate about Air Jordans. This is really just a business. So, I can kind of feel that like the passion is not here to go the distance for the work, to climb the mountain that I need to climb to do this. I don't think I have the passion for this idea. And I can kind of tell that. So as I was feeling that, I walked out of the Zon Innovation Center, and literally, like, I'm not joking, there's a giant poster on the wall for ShredLights. And I'm like, huh. And so I started like looking at it, and it's headlights for skateboards. And I had my skateboard. That was the main way I got around campus for, all 4 years I was at SDSU. So I was constantly skating in the dark. And, I was like parking off campus because I wanted to park for free. So on campus was nice. There's plenty of lights and everything. Everything's good to go. But then as soon as I got off campus for that last half mile or mile to my car, it'd be completely dark and there's cars coming. So I had already kind of experienced the problem firsthand of skating in the dark and wanting to be seen by cars. And so when I saw the poster, I was like, it kind of just clicked right away. Like, that makes sense. That's a good idea. And my first thought was, I want some of those. Like, I just want some headlights for my skateboard. So I took a picture of the poster, and then I emailed the founder at the time and said, "Hey, can I buy some ShredLights?" And he was like, "Oh, no, they're not ready yet. We're still working on it." And I was like, "Okay, well, I'm in there. I'm in the Zon Center. My own business is, do you guys need any help?" And he said, well, no, but we need a website. Do you know anyone that can make us a website? And over the last 3 months, I just learned how to make my first website with my first idea. So I was like totally like not feeling like I could, but I was like, I just knew I had to say yes. So I was like, yeah, I can do this. And my brother had actually built like a lot of my first website with me. So I got the deal to make the ShredLights website. I think it was for like $50. And I basically called up my brother and had my brother build like a ton of the website. And I think I paid him like $100. So I lost money on it, but I delivered this website. And it was kind of a good lesson of like just saying, yeah, if I had said no to Drew, oh no, I can't make this website, my life would have been on a completely different trajectory because I couldn't really build a website, but I just knew I could figure out how to get a website built, even if I wasn't the one to do it. So I think that like was a good lesson, and yeah, and that's how I originally got involved in ShredLights.
Wow. So it was another student who had it going, is what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying? And someone else was so let's talk
Yeah,
about that. Like what was the relationship of joining and where did it go from there? Because obviously the journey of finding, I don't know if you ended up becoming co-founders or how did that whole kind of journey go together on that?
totally. Yeah, yeah. At that time, it was definitely his idea. He was a really good street skater growing up, so he wanted to sell to. Street skating just means like doing tricks. So, for example, if you see someone skating down a set of stairs or doing like a handrail, more tricks and that type of crowd. And that was who we wanted to sell to. So that was kind of our initial target market. And we had Kyle, who's going to be the engineer. And I was kind of just the fringe kid. And I kind of saw in the first few months, like, there isn't much I can, there's not much value I can add yet, but it's important that I don't get in the way and I just keep showing up.
Hmm.
So for the first like 3 months, I would literally just show up to all these meetings with a notebook and not really say anything and just sit there and like take notes or just help make their lives a tiny bit easier, but really try and stay out of the way and just kind of soak it in and I think after a few months, they were like, all right, this Eric kid, we don't really know how we're going to use him yet, but he keeps showing up. Like, we got to have some place for him. So that was kind of how it started. They were like, you can join the team. We don't really know what you're going to do, but we like your dedication. We can tell you understand the problem and solution. So I just kind of got on the team by just consistently showing up and yeah, not trying to do too much right away, I guess. And then over the next few years, we were just 3D printing and trying to design something that didn't break, which was very, very difficult. And in parallel, kind of trying to validate like, do people actually want this product? Like, if we make the perfect headlight that doesn't break, does anyone actually want that? So we're kind of in parallel developing these two things, like developing the actual product, but also trying to develop the demand and see once we have the product ready, will the demand be there? And so we were, going to different events, posting on social media. The early days of ShredLights, we used to buy these like pre-built flashlights from Alibaba, and then I would take shoelaces and wrap them around the skateboard. So when the video is on, and because it's a light and you're in the dark, you could never really see the actual light. All you could see was like the LED cast. So when we take videos, it looked like two headlights on the board, and you couldn't tell what the actual light was. And these lights would break after literally 5 minutes. I would buy sets of like 50 lights and bring all these lights with me, and we'd have to keep swapping them like every 5 minutes because they would break super quick. So we'd have to like put them on the board, get a couple shots, they'd break, and that was just in the effort of like validating, yeah, the demand and the idea.
What a classic entrepreneurial thing to build it, then go find like, hey, do people want this thing? A hammer looking
Yep.
for a nail. Like we have all been there for sure.
Yeah.
It used to be more on a helmet. Is that what you said? And then it became on the skateboard? Is that what I heard you talk about?
No, it always started on the
Oh,
skateboard,
okay.
yeah. And
Got
that
it.
was kind of like that's how we found our blue ocean was like one, no one else cares about making a light durable enough for a skateboard because it's a small market. And two, it's just really hard. Like there is like a skateboard takes so much abuse but there really is nothing out there that can withstand it. So it was kind of good for us because it was such a hard problem to solve that that's what kind of created our IP and our moat is once we were able to solve that, it really did differentiate us in the marketplace. And once business started growing later, that was a key feature that kind of really helped us grow. So
yeah, talk about growth a bit. Like, where did you talk?
yeah,
How did you figure out how supply chain? Like, what was? I guess was there a moment where like this is working? We got to scale.
well, first, yeah, the first big failure, I can kind of get to that first. So in 2016, we launched Kickstarter, and that was super fun because we'd kind of been like, we'd been building all these prototypes, testing and stuff. We hadn't really had like a clear like roadmap to go to market. So once we started planning Kickstarter and going for that, it felt like, okay, this is real now. Now like the launch is coming. We all need to like commit to schedules, divvying up the work, and like we got to hit this deadline. So we worked super hard on that. I did like a random email to ABC News, and they sent an anchor out to SDSU to interview us. And it was literally the day our Kickstarter launched. So we launched this Kickstarter. We have, a news special coming that day. And so I'm like super excited. And our goal for the Kickstarter was like 40 grand. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, we're going to air on the news. We're going to hit the goal right away. This is, in San Diego. So I'm living with seven other guys in this house. And the 6 p.m. news comes on, and we're watching me on the news pitch ShredLights, and it's like so exciting. And I'm just thinking, like in my head, like counting the dollars coming in. It's so excited. And then, the 2-minute, 3-minute segment airs and it's done. And I'm sitting there like refreshing my phone, like, all right, where are the orders at? And it's just like nothing. And then like 2 days go by and we just got stuck at like 3,000 or 4,000. And it was just like a slap in the face of reality that we had zero product market fit. And we tried running ads, we tried going to skate parks, we tried doing all the guerrilla marketing tactics. And over, we just kept getting told point blank, like, I don't want these lights on my board. Street skaters do not care about safety. And actually, when you're doing certain tricks, the way the board can flip and spin, the lights would actually blind them. Because when you're doing a trick, you're looking down at your board. And so when the board's flipping around, the lights can blind you. So it was just like a horrible product market fit. And we rode that assumption all the way to the Kickstarter. And I think we were in kind of denial because we wanted to have a company in the street skating space so bad that we ignored all the other signs that this was not actually a good business model. And it all kind of came to a culmination at the Kickstarter where like I met one of the most legendary pro skaters ever, Jamie Thomas. He was in like all the Tony Hawk video games, like super famous pro skater. And I gave him some ShredLights and he was just straight to my face like, what? This is such a gimmick. I don't want these. Why are you talking to me? But it was important for me to have that experience. I mean, he wasn't like that rude. And I was kind of soliciting him. So I understood that. I didn't take it personally, but it was like, all right, it doesn't get more obvious than that. We're barking up the wrong tree here. So after that, Drew, the original founder, really kind of lost faith. And he was like, look, I don't want to do this anymore. He had just graduated college and he was like 26, whereas I was only like 20 or 19 at the time. And he was like, hey, I need to make some real money. I need to, get my life started. I just graduated. So it was totally understandable. And he was like, I don't think I want to go with this anymore. So then he left and Kyle and I decided to take over. And so this was like 2017 now. And we were fresh off our failed Kickstarter. We had some 3D printed designs that still broke pretty often. And we were like, hey, we put this much work in. Let's give it 6 more months and let's see. And if we can't sell, I think our goal was like 200 sets of lights or something in 6 months, we're giving up. And Kyle and I had that agreement. So the first thing we did, this is probably like the biggest inflection point in the ShredLight story, is Kyle and I sat down. We're like, okay, we both agree that street skaters aren't the market, but who is? And is there a market? So we're like, all right, we have like 70 customers. So let's just shoot them a survey and let's ask them, who they are and see if we can get some information there. So the first question of the survey was, what board do you ride? And it was like a penny board, a skateboard, or a longboard. And that was our bias because those were the only boards we rode. And then thank God I put an option for other. So there was the 3 options that we assumed that they would answer and other. And then out of the 70 respondents, probably 70% of them filled out other and either wrote in electric skateboard or bootstrapping. And that was literally how we even ever heard of electric skateboarding. So then we were like, all right, what the heck is a boosted board? So we like Google it and we see they just did a Kickstarter and they got funded for like a couple million and their project just ended. And it's a $1,500 electric skateboard that goes 20 miles an hour and it's more for commuting. And everyone in their videos is wearing helmets and knee pads and safety gear. So me and Kyle are like, dude, I think this is it. Like this customer has the money. They care about safety. It's totally different than longboarding. So it was like, now we had our sights set on a better target. And we were still like, we had no idea if it would work, but at least we were like, okay, this is someone that is voluntarily telling us they want the product. So then I reached out to anyone I knew at SDSU and said, hey, do you know anyone with an electric skateboard? And through like 3 different friends, I found some random guy that had an electric skateboard and I asked him if I could borrow it. And we put our prototypes on that and basically went around SDSU and I shot all new photos and basically just completely pivoted the website to go from street skating to all new content with electric skateboarding. And it was just like, it felt like the next like 12 months were like out of a movie. It was like the classic entrepreneur dream where it was just like sales were growing by like 200 or 300% every month. And we weren't doing any marketing. So like those first couple of years were insane. We did our first million in revenue with zero ad spend. We didn't have any Facebook ads set up. Like we weren't doing anything. We were just like, what the heck's going on? And honestly, all of our time was spent building the lights and just trying to keep up with demand. And later we figured out that we were like going viral on Reddit and it was all word of mouth. And we were like the only ones and we were just right place, right time, the only ones with this product. There was a growing population of electric skateboard owners that needed lights. And so that we were just kind of riding that wave and we had no idea what was really happening for like a year.
Wow. Amazing. What a turnaround. I mean, think about all everything that happened to a failed Kickstarter and the founder leaving. Like it would be very easy for you to be like, not my thing, not what I signed up for, but you guys stepped up and you're like, no, look, let's get to know the customer. Let's
Yeah.
get to know what the real problem that we're solving here.
Mm-hmm.
And you did the work. Like you went and actually did the real customer development and then turned it around. Such a cool story. Uh, and so orders are coming in, like, are you now having to change as a business? Like you're having to actually make these, fulfill orders. Like, how
Yeah.
do you even know how to set up supply chain and, kind of the e-commerce and the whole thing around that to scale it up?
Yeah. I mean, we had no idea. It was just completely winging it. So we made a lot of mistakes. We had a lot of quality issues with the product. I mean, making 1 or 2 is one thing, but to make hundreds is really tough. So I would go to the Zon Center every 8 hours and start a new print. So like I'd be out partying Friday night and it'd be like 11:30 at night and my alarm would go off and I'd skate from the party over to the Zon Center, swipe in and take the prints off, start a new print, and then skate back to the party. um,
Wow.
and then I would,
To Kathy Poocher, who I'm sure saw you
yeah,
clock in, clock out like 8 times a day on the logs or something there.
yeah. She knew what I was doing, but she was a huge supporter early on, so that was awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then I started hiring my roommates to build them. So at that time, we started doing everything in the U.S. So 3D printing the housings, we were ordering the circuit boards locally, but no matter what, we were always ordering the batteries from China. And obviously, we knew China was the end game to manufacture. We just didn't know how to get there. So we started just literally going on Alibaba completely from scratch. And we went through so many different suppliers in a 2 or 3 year period. Um, you know, just every batch had something wrong with it. It was late. It cost too much. Anything that could have happened pretty much did. But we had to just like keep forging ahead. And luckily at that time, because the market was growing and we were the only ones with this product, the market kind of dealt with a lot of our early issues. So like a
Mm.
lot of our first lights, had a huge failure rate, like 30%. But people just kept buying another pair and another pair because there was nothing else out there that was better. So even though ours wasn't that great, it was still way better than any other option for like mounting a bike light or anything else. So I think that really allowed us a little more leeway and a little more space to fail and not lose our position in the market. I think had we been in more of a competitive market, we probably would have, gotten out innovated a lot sooner. So being the only one here and kind of having this blue ocean market gave us a lot more space to fail and figure it out because it was our first business.
Got it.
And then I would say the next kind of key inflection point was our first time going to China in 2019.
Mm.
That was like, I think looking back, that's probably the biggest regret I have with ShredLights was not going to China sooner.
Ah.
I think we didn't really realize like we were, replacing these POs, they weren't huge. Let's say, we're spending 50 to 100,000 a year, maybe, which isn't that much, for this stuff. But in hindsight, I should have at the time been like, hey, we're spending this much. We should totally spend 2 or 3,000 to go out there and meet them. It's not that, it's expensive, but like, I don't know, it just didn't click that like spending a couple $1,000s to go to China was going to have exponential returns. And I just never thought about it like that until we were there. And then when we were there, we were meeting with all of our suppliers, and it was like we'd meet in the morning and they'd show us a sample and we'd be like, okay, here's all the changes we need. And they'd be like, okay, I'll be back in 2 hours. 2 hours later, they got the next version. Okay, here's the next changes. Okay, I'll be back in 2 hours. So now it's like we had 3 versions of a part in one day. So me and Kyle were just like having so much fun there because it was like we're getting so much done so quick. I mean, not only in the work aspect, but like just really cool people. Everyone is super welcoming, super nice. Just everything about that first trip went really, really well. And it was super eye opening to us to like, okay, if we're going to have a consumer product good company, especially an electronic one, we got to have close ties to our supply chain in China. And we really need to make this a core pillar of our operations and not just, a manufacturer on Alibaba. Like we really need to own our supply chain here. So about a year after that trip, we hired a full-time employee in China to fully manage our supply chain, which ended up being super lucky because we hired him in like November 2019 or January 2020. And we were trying to come out with a new product at the time. And then obviously COVID hit. And so had we not had him during that 2-year period when we couldn't go to China and everything was going crazy with supply chain, we definitely would have gone out of business. But having him there, like, was so valuable during that time.
Wow, incredible. I mean, you couldn't have planned that whatsoever.
No.
And a lot of other China foreshadowing comes to here, which kind of also just wonder, us American entrepreneurs hear a lot about IP stealing and copycat. Was that a worry? Or once you got into China, you learned a lot about what that really is?
Yeah, no, it was absolutely a worry. And yeah, it's funny. I mean, we did get totally copied like 2 or 3 years ago. One of our suppliers, decided to make their own version. And honestly, for us and our market and our circumstances, it wasn't that big a deal because we had the trusted brand name. We always had the best after sales support. Like we had so many intangible things outside of the product that the whole market didn't really want to choose this other product. It actually wasn't really any cheaper or better in any way either. But that was an interesting lesson because it's like, okay, we got knocked off, and the best thing to do is not do anything. So I think that kind of changed my perspective on IP. And again, this is purely just my circumstance. I'm not saying IP, isn't worthwhile, but in our situation, it wasn't worth suing them, and they fizzled out pretty quick. So I think that experience eased our concerns, even though like someone, had broken our trust there. The actual reality of how that played out wasn't that big a deal. So it was a good lesson of kind of the actual damage that something like that would cause.
Yeah. So take us going forward now, obviously, and I'm gonna fast forward us if you'd like all the way to tariffs, right? Which is the next
Yeah,
giant headwind, or maybe there's even more, just
yeah.
like
There's one in between.
I mean, there's logistics craziness of getting stuff from China to, America and then everything else. Like, I just, man, I feel for you already of just the headwinds that come from a hardware product from China to America. Like, yeah,
Totally.
where is that what has powered you through in a sense to this exit here?
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I think the last 2 years have been by far the most challenging, personally. So after COVID, the outdoor consumer product goods space just blew up. So like 2021, 2022 were our biggest years ever, and
Hmm.
learned a lot about cash flow, managing inventory. And so it was like we had our biggest years ever, but we were still struggling to pay for POs. And with a product like ours, basically we have to put down 50%. It takes 12 weeks before we get the product. But at 8 weeks, we have to pay the other 50%. So it's like this money is it takes super long to get a return on our money based on the lead times and stuff. And we didn't really understand how to forecast this. So it was a huge learning curve there. And so it was like, we are doing over 1 million a year and we were still not really making money and we were
Mhm.
still having to get outside financing. So that was when we made a major change and we made Kyle the CEO. And he did a really excellent job at leaning out our costs and setting the right prices and developing some really detailed and useful spreadsheets that would allow us to have a much clearer idea of what would happen in the next 6 to 12 months based on different scenarios. So it felt like Kyle really helped take us from
Mhm.
kind of this like accidental success to like a real operation that was going to be scalable and repeatable. So that was kind of a huge point in 2022. And we were doing super well. So, we just had these big years. We were expanding into electric bikes and other markets, and everything was going well. And I felt like, okay, we had our big growth moment and we've made all these mistakes, but now we've been in business for 4 or 5 years. Like now we know what to do. It's just a matter of putting the plan in place. So we started implementing this plan and we had our first profitable year. We had like almost a 10% net margin, which is really solid for a consumer product
Wow.
good company. And this is all without any sort of outside investment, basically just loans. So everything was going well. And then we started developing a smartphone app so you would be able to control all your lights via Bluetooth. So Kyle went out and found a couple really talented engineers that were able to essentially work on the product for royalties or payment later. So he understood like, hey, we can't invest like it would have been like 100 grand to get this developed. So we need to find partners that are willing to build now and kind of get paid later. So we had set all this up and it was like, cool, like we're moving. Like we got our operations are online, cash flow is getting better. We're developing really high tech stuff. We're kind of punching out of our league almost with Bluetooth lights. Like this is way more advanced than we've ever done before. Everything was like, all right, in the next 2 years, we're going to be on track for like 5 million a year. And it was super exciting. And that's kind of when everything came crashing down. Um, so Kyle got married in May 2022 to his wife, Diana, who I'm also friends with, very successful creator on YouTube, Physics Girl. Definitely check out her channel. Really cool educational physics videos. So it's super fun wedding. Was super happy for Kyle as a friend and a business partner. Really happy for him at the wedding. And then went to Scotland for 2 months. And Diana got COVID in Scotland and got back. It turned into long COVID and it just affected her really, really strongly. So slowly throughout that fall, and I don't mean to spare the details on Diana's story. It is really sad, but trying to keep it in relation to ShredLights.
No, and she's been really public about it. I've been following her on
Yeah,
Twitter,
yeah. If you're
sharing her
interested in hearing
story,
more, yeah,
and she's on
physics
the up,
coach.
which is pretty awesome, right?
She's doing great now, which is
Really,
great. Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
totally.
yeah. Super good news there. Yeah, so that fall, Kyle slowly started taking more time off to spend with her. And Kyle and I have always really had a strong connection. He's like an older brother to me. He's the same age as my oldest brother. So there's always been that like, hey, we can usually make business first, but we do care about each other and we're friends. And he's like family. We spent so much time together. We've been through so much. So I just wanted to be there to support him and Diana. And that was always my mindset was like, if the business fails, it's fine. Like he needs to be there for her. So I slowly started taking on some of his responsibilities. And then in January, she started doing a lot worse. And so he said, hey, I need to fully step away. I need to be a full-time caretaker for Diana. Like that's my only priority in life right now. So I was like, okay, I understand. I agree. That's what you should do. And basically, this was like a matter of weeks where he made this decision and left. And then I was left to take over full-time product manager of the Bluetooth line. We were still deep in R&D there, so I had to get up to speed on all the Bluetooth project, a lot of the details there, all of the testing features, everything with that, plus all the financial forecasting, while still doing all the marketing and ads and everything. And so that was the last 2 years. And meanwhile, while internally all that was happening, the market really slowed down. So in 2022, we kind of had an artificial, boom, and it was not real. Like the demand was so much higher than it should have been. And so it wasn't necessarily that the market like shrank. It was just like, okay, the artificial demand's gone. Now you got to get used to it. So we were adapting to lower sales. So I was constantly having to like figure out how to keep lowering our operating costs while we're trying to develop this new product line. And I feel like in the last 2 years, I like actually feel like I'm an entrepreneur now. I think before that, because Kyle and I had divided the workload so much so, I always kind of felt this sense of imposter syndrome, like telling people I was an entrepreneur because I'm like, well, I just make cool videos and, I give Kyle feedback on the product, but he does he designs it and all this stuff. But the last 2 years now, it's like, I'm going to China. I'm doing I'm talking with banks to get financing. So I feel like that experience for me really kind of made me earn my stripes. And I'm like, all right, now I'm like running the whole business myself. Now I feel like I can actually confidently say I'm an entrepreneur.
Hmm. What an experience though. What a relationship for the two of you to have though, to one, switch roles at some point, which not a lot of partners actually survive, by the way. There's like so much
Mm-hmm.
go to stuff, even when you're co-founder or even, like owner, right, of a business. Swapping CEO roles can sometimes be devastating. Someone's like
Yeah,
adequate, right? And you're like, oh, I couldn't do the job or something. But one, kudos to the partnership and friendship that you two had, right? Like that's
mm-hmm.
the kind of partnership we talk about with partners is it's a second marriage, right? And
Totally. Oh yeah,
obviously you guys had that, right? That deep
yeah,
trust to say, you know what, I'm not rocking this skill set and I think you have it. You try
yeah,
it and I'll support you. And then two steps say, look, like life comes first and go do life while I, take this to the next level. I don't know. It's just like really, really hit me.
sure.
It's just say like, what a great partner you had, the two of you in each other, which is something.
Absolutely. And I think our relationship dynamic was like a key ingredient to success. You got to be able to make it through that stuff. You got to have fun. I think that's how we always saw it. Like we would have like, a shipment lost or like 1,000 parts would show up and it'd be the wrong part. And we would just like laugh because it was like, we're making skateboard lights and we always kind of had that, like, it's not that serious, but we were able to like laugh at ourselves when really bad stuff would happen. We deal with it, but at least we were like lighthearted. Like we've never yelled at each other or gotten like in a heated thing. Like anytime that would potentially happen, it was a very calm, like, hey, let's circle back tomorrow. Let's not do this. Let's circle back. So I think
Yeah.
our communication and emotional intelligence towards each other helped so much. And it just made it fun. And when something's fun, you're going to be able to succeed so much more. When you're not having fun, it's hard to put the effort in. So
True.
just, yeah, keeping it fun between us was huge.
Did you meet every day in person, or was there a lot of working virtually through the years together?
Um, a lot in person, and for the from like 2017 to 2019 when the business was first starting to take off, he was working full time at the Zon Center, and then we got him to go half time, and
Mm.
then finally in 2019 he left his full time job there, and that's our nickname for him was Full Time Kyle because it was like, oh my god, we finally have Kyle full time at ShredLights. Because up to that point, I had only had like a couple days a week, or to answer your question, I had very limited access to him up
Mm.
until he went full time. So that was super exciting. And then we got an office space sports arena, and then we were in the office every day. We had like 7 3D printers, and yeah, it'd be awesome. I'd come into work and he would 3D print a new design. I would go test it. I'd come in, we'd see what went wrong. He would design another one, come in the next day. And for like a couple years, that's what we do, just printing and testing different stacks. So it was super fun.
Wow. Wow. Really cool. So where did it take you? Like where, like where did when did the idea of selling actually come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the very beginning, I always wanted to sell the business, and that was kind of a big part of starting a business. So that was always in the back of our mind. But the last 2 years, yeah, like I said, the market slowing down and me getting a lot better at the financial forecasting and cash flow
Mm.
made me see the bigger picture. And so I could kind of see like, okay, this is realistically where this business is going to go. There's no way we're going to just double profit overnight or these different things. So I was building these financial forecasts for like, okay, let's say we get into the bike market, we come out with a killer product. Okay, what does that actually mean? Are we going to sell 500,000 units a year? No, probably not. Maybe we'll sell 5 or 10,000. Okay, what's our margin? What's our price? And I'd plug in these different scenarios of like best case, worst case, and it really helped me kind of see these different futures. And I think even in the best case, it was really clear that the ceiling was low. So I think as an entrepreneur, I'm like, okay, I have all these skill sets now that I can apply to anything. Is this the best thing for me to apply it to for 5 more years? Or do I want to apply this to something else? And I think once I started asking that question and seeing the best case scenarios that were going to be, the best case scenarios would have taken a ton of risk, sacrifice, and hard work for me to achieve. And then I was seeing like, okay, here's how much I could make getting there. It wasn't necessarily about the money. It was more just like, do I want to do this? So that's where, yeah, selling came about. And about a year and a half ago is when I kind of really decided to go after it. So started splitting my time between working on the business and trying to sell it. Started reaching out to other entrepreneurs in San Diego. Found a guy named Riley, who is the founder of Loom Cube. That was another light company, and he's in North
Yeah.
County. So met with him, and he kind of just became my mentor last summer. And he had just exited his business, and he was 5 years farther along. And he's 5 years older, and he was just got married, about to have his first kid, and kind of had these things that I want in 5 years. So he's a really great mentor, and asked a lot of the tough questions. And he was asking Eric the questions, not ShredLights. What do you want? Where do you want to be in a few years? And he got me to really kind of separate my own goals and stuff from the business. And that's where he kind of helped me decide, okay, I want to sell the business for sure. And that's where it kind of really became concrete. So I started, creating pitch decks, use ChatGPT a ton, and just kind of trying to figure out like, how do you sell a business? This seems like an extremely daunting thing. And how do I actually do this? And just like anything in entrepreneurship, it's like, just take a baby step. Don't worry about all the things you need to do and all the things you don't know yet. Just start taking steps, right? And that's what I did over the last year, is just kind of like meeting with anyone I could, meeting with anyone that had sold a business, trying to just soak up as much information as I could. And then last fall, started reaching out to some companies in our space, and very quickly found that all the other companies have also had declining sales in the last 2 years, and no one was really, thinking about growth right now. And all the other companies know ShredLights, They know we have a great customer base, a great product. And it wasn't that they were like, weren't interested in buying ShredLights. They just weren't interested in investing in growth right now because they were really trying to cut their costs and maybe had already laid off some team members. So it just wasn't a right time to make this play. So Q4 last year, everyone was too busy and we were also busy. Q4 is our biggest time of the year, just like, you know, any e-commerce company. So I kind of had to put it on the back burner for Q4. Started, you know, working hard, but it really started kind of eating away at me. And that's what got really tough, I think. I was going through a breakup at the time as well. And I think that was one of the real low points for me with ShredLights was like, I had so much work to do that I had to get done. I was the only one that could do it. But meanwhile, I was kind of like really at this low point mentally of like feeling like a failure, feeling like, okay, I can't just shut down the business. So I felt very trapped. We had some debt that was to the business, but me and Kyle had co-signed on. So if I wanted to dissolve the business, I would have had to assume that debt personally, which I didn't want to do. It was a lot more debt than I'd be interested in. So I felt very, very trapped. And that, you know, some days were really, really tough. And that was when I kind of like asked myself, like, all right, like you got yourself in this situation. What are you going to do about it? You know, are you going to complain and blame other people? Are you going to roll up your sleeves and like figure out how to do it? So that was really challenging time though, to like wake up every day and be able to like keep making steps when I didn't know if it was in the right direction. I didn't know if it was going to work. Like I had no idea if I'd be able to keep making rent in 6 months. Like it was a really tough time. But I think what got me through it was just like I don't know, just kind of the belief in myself that like I could learn how to do any of this stuff. And as long as I gave my best effort, if no one bought the business and it was a complete failure, I could live with that. But if I gave up now, I couldn't live with that. And I knew that. So I'm like, all right, I owe it to my future self. Like I at least have to try. And if it doesn't work, I can live with that. But yeah, so fast forward to this spring, I kind of got back on the outreach campaign, was reaching out to more companies, was getting a little more interest. And throughout those 6 months, I spent a ton of time understanding how to pitch a business. So understanding all the key risk factors that the buyer would look for, different financial projections of scenarios of worst case, best case, here's how you make your money back. I'm asking for X amount of money and here's how I'm going to back that up. So just understanding how to learn everything. So once it came down to the negotiation, I knew what I was talking about. And that took a lot of time to learn all that. And so in April, I met one of the electric skateboard company owners in Vegas. And I had known him for a while, but we saw each other there. And 2 years ago, I pitched the idea of him buying my business kind of loosely. And he was like, yeah, sure. But at that time, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to do it. But now I was. So we met in Vegas and went to his hotel and I brought up the pitch deck and I had everything ready. And I could tell on his face, like he saw that I was much, much more serious this time and I had everything to back it up. And I'd been, you know, getting all this ready. And he starts talking about prices and stuff. And it was the first time someone had like actually validated that they might want to buy the business. So it was super exciting. And it was like, holy crap, okay, this is it. So the next day I went to Zion National Park and was just hiking by myself for the day. And I'm like driving out there and I'm thinking like, I'm so excited. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is it. But I'm not trying to get too excited because it's still early. So he goes back to China and then communication essentially fell off in April. So the Chinese culture, at least the companies I've worked with, they don't really do Zoom or video meetings nearly as much. It's all like WeChat messages or emails, and they're not really used to scheduling like, hey, let's meet at 7. We're both going to come with an agenda and get something done. That's like very American. They don't really do that there. So I was kind of struggling to be like, how do I keep this deal going while we're like barely talking to each other? So in April, it really felt like it was like a do or die moment where I was like, okay, here's my window right now. And if I don't close this, you know, in the next month, like it's going to go away. And then I'm going to have to shut down the business and take this debt. So I like felt this intense pressure. And I was just like, one night, it was really stressing me out. And so I was like journaling. And then I was thinking, like, what can I do about this? What is in my control? And I'm like, well, I can go to China. Like, I can buy a ticket right now to go to China, and then we'll see. And once I kind of thought about that, I'm like, yeah, I totally need to do this. So that night, I just booked a trip to China for like 3 weeks out. And I messaged him and was like, hey, are you around? Can I come these dates? And he was like, yeah, that's good. And that was all we had. So like there was no understanding that we were gonna like try and close the deal. It was just like I told him, I was like, oh, I'll be there for another reason. We might as well meet. And I like made this up. And then went to China, and I had like 10-day trip planned in May, and I had no agenda. So my goal was to, you know, sell the business and close the deal, but we had no plan, like no no agenda. So I'm on the plane like 3 hours from landing, and he messages me and he's like, hey, do you want to come to my house for the weekend, and we can talk some business and we can swim and hang out and stuff. And I think it was his way of wanting to get to know me better, because a big part of this deal was going to be me working for him with his electric skateboard company. So I felt like it was a way for him to get to know me better. And yeah, so did that. And basically the whole rest of the trip, just like everything lined up. And I think I got there on Wednesday. And by Monday at 5 p.m., we'd signed the deal. And it was like at the hotel, I was just thinking, like, this is so insane that, like, I thought it would take 2 weeks to maybe get an offer. And it was like the third day, the deal's signed.
Wow. All because you showed up.
Exactly. Yeah. And he said that. He was like, yeah, you coming here showed me that you were serious about it. So I think that was like my biggest takeaway from this was like, you got to understand, like, when you got to, you don't need 100% certainty. You need to, like, just take the risk and just go for it. And had I gone to China and come home empty handed, I could have lived with that because at least I went for it, you know?
Yep. Wow. So you came home, company sold, but now you're working for that company. Is that true to this day? You're still now working kind of from here in San Diego,
Yep.
helping build the company?
Yep. So yeah, the new company is called Meepo Electric Skateboards. And so it's kind of been two main things. June was really busy with transitioning ShredLights to them. And it's been a really cool learning experience to like actually see how an asset sale goes. So I'm always curious, like, how do you start a business? How do you sell a business? Well, now I'm getting an answer like, how do you actually merge a business? So that's been really fun. And then Meepo is one of the biggest electric skateboard companies, but they have no one in the United States right now.
Oh.
So their branding and marketing, you know, has a lot of room for improvement. So it's been super exciting for me to take a lot of the skills and relationships that I built with ShredLights, and then now be able to immediately apply them to Meepo and immediately make an impact. So I think back to what I was saying earlier of kind of feeling like the ceiling was too low at ShredLights. The last couple months have been super exciting for me to, you know, be able to do a lot of the same stuff, but everything is just a bigger result now with a bigger brand.
Wow, that's really cool to now to take all those years of experience in different phases of the company, but now also to kind of represent a bigger brand, if you will, in the space that you already know. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool
Thanks.
outcome, I would say, in all that.
Yeah, super fun.
But wow, what a journey. And introspective of you. I don't know. I mean, like this all happened really recently, a lot of this.
Yeah.
And to
Yeah, I'm
still
definitely still getting used to it.
totally. But still, to just, I don't know, put yourself in the moment. And April wasn't that long ago. It was like 4 months ago. You just like hopped on a plane. You're like, I got to do this.
Yeah.
So kudos to you, Eric. I think your story is very much still being written. Very excited for where the journey is head. Where can people find, or so are ShredLights now Meepo Lights, or did they get rebranded, renamed, or
No. ShredLights brand will live on. Everything with ShredLights will remain the same, which is super cool because in a lot of scenarios, ShredLights would have gone out of business and died.
Yeah.
So it's cool that this was the best situation for ShredLights. We spent 10 years building this brand, and we have a lot of evangelists out there. So it's super cool to be able to feel like ShredLights is in a good home and also have some control over it to help however I can and make sure, yeah, that it stays the same brand as much as possible. And then, yeah, I'll be working at Meepo, and yeah, kind of excited it's kind of nice to have a job right away so I can keep moving because I think, I don't know, I can't relax for too long, but I think maybe in a year or something, once I'm farther from this transition, we'll see then, what I want to do and how I'm feeling. But I think right now it's been exciting to just dive right into the next thing.
Well, we really appreciate you sharing your story. And like I said, your story's still being written. So excited for what you continue to do next, because all that
Yeah,
entrepreneurial learnings and energy is definitely going to go somewhere for sure.
definitely. Yeah.
And
We're
hopefully
just getting started.
totally, exactly. So hopefully, and especially in San Diego, there's so many good people to collaborate with. You mentioned Riley, who's gone on to start Cadre AI, right? So mentor of yours in a second life, starting an AI agency, who previously built a hardware company. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see the founder entrepreneurial community that you're a part of here as well. And like I said, like you mentioned, deep rooted in SDSU ZIP
Hmm.
and Zon Center, which is pretty cool as well too. Where I spend pretty much every Friday these days, just mentoring student entrepreneurs like that as well. So pretty cool story.
Yeah,
And
thanks.
of course, but the audience has to know on its way out. You're traveling China, you're traveling all over, you're shredding locally now in North County and Encinitas. Where is your go-to spot for tacos?
I would say Los Tacos off Encinitas Boulevard, kind of El Camino Real. Yeah,
Yeah,
they got a spicy shrimp surf and turf burrito. Oh, it's so good. I just had one this weekend. So I'd say,
it's a
yeah, Los Tacos is my favorite.
good little hidden gem back there. I pick it up as well, right in that Pete's shopping center,
Yeah.
Pete's in the Habit right there, tucked away next to, I think, like a mochi donut spot that seems to like
Hmm.
rotate through different brand names of donut places. But Los Tacos has held steady since
Yeah.
I think they opened during COVID and
Yeah.
have been, yeah, I get their taco bowls, which are pretty
My
good.
my hot take though, I gotta say, after living in South County for so long, I think I got better taco shops down south. I will
Okay.
say. So Los Tacos is my favorite up here, but I felt like, yeah, there's a lot down south that I liked a lot
All
too.
right, then
So
name them. Drop some South County ones.
I'd say La Perla. La Perla is my favorite, probably in PB. They got the best California burrito ever. Um, Oscar's fish tacos. Oscar's, how like In and Out, you show it to someone and they're like, "Oh, it's just a burger," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, you can't totally buy the hype." Oscar's is one of those places where I feel like it totally lives up to the hype. Where you could say it's the best taco you've ever had, and someone would be like, "Yep, I could believe that."
The
So
ceviche,
yeah,
Oscar
oh
ceviche.
yeah,
Uh,
so good.
by the way, Oscar's had a spot in the same in the Trader Joe's park center just
Oh,
behind those tacos, and it closed during COVID. So pour one out,
dang,
Oscar. They tried North County uh,
dang.
for a hot minute.
Okay, have you been to Pablo's Tacos? I've heard of them, but I haven't been yet.
Pablo's? No, where's that?
Pavlos, Pav.
No.
It's right near Los Tacos. It's by like Sprouts and Whole Foods or Sprouts and LA Fitness and stuff.
Okay.
I haven't tried it yet, but I've heard it's really good. So maybe that'll make the list.
Okay, then maybe they'll make the list. That within one block, we're talking NCS Boulevard and El Camino Real, like
Yeah,
that.
it's like right there. Yep.
There's a bunch that we're talking about all right there, and I just got. There's probably another one across the street that needs to be tried right there too. I think it's Tacos Viejas. You seen that
Okay.
one? Is it
No.
across the street, literally? So looks like we need to do a little
Yeah.
taco crawl together. Maybe
Now I'm hungry.
skateboard. We should skate
Yeah.
and see if we can do a taco crawl with a few of
Yeah.
us.
Do you skate?
A little bit, a little bit. I wouldn't tell people I would just in case
All right. Well, there you go. You just signed up for a e-skate demo. I have
let's go.
9 electric skateboards in my garage. So
Done.
we
All
can
right,
meet
we're
up.
doing-
They're super easy to ride.
All right, we're doing that. We're doing a
Yeah.
skate mo, and then we're going Los Tacos to, it's Mexico Viejo, and then Pablo's Tacos, all three right there.
Perfect.
Put it on the calendar. Eric, this is awesome. What a journey. So pumped for just the learnings, but also where you're headed as well too. So thank you for sharing your story. Shout out to the rest of the team too, Kyle, and original founder
definitely.
Drew, who
Yep.
sparked this inspiration with you. And
Mhm.
Eric, thanks so much. And I'll see
Yeah.
you on electric skateboard very soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Neal.
Thanks. Cheers.
Startups get the party started. Startups get the party. Startups get the party started. You want tech and tacos, tacos and tech. You know we got tacos and tech is on smash. Border green, guacamole. Keep accountants counting beans. Contador cuentan frijoles. Founders trying to raise some queso. La vida San Diego. School of rappy, rapping fire. Tortillas round jalapenos. In these modern times of craft beer and coffee, my coding yoga posse fold the body origami. We be surfing Coronado, eating tacos el gordo. The taco stand in puesto, lucha libre and sombrero. Gotta shout out Tecos Daniels by the ocean, watch the sunset. The Hoya shores, entrepreneurs trying to get funded. When San Diego Startup Week is popping in the summer, Oceanside to Tijuana, SD be full of hustlers. From couch surfing to penthouses right on the beach. Tech leaders who believe stars are within reach. We interviewing founders who be shooting for the moon. Hashtag SD Tecos with your host, Neal Bloom. Come on! Startups get the party. Startups get the party started. Startups get the party. Startups get the party started. Startups get the party. Startups get the party started. You want tech and tacos, tacos and tech. You know we got it. Hey. Startups get the party. Startups get the party started. Startups get the party. Startups get the party started.